Exactly. All right. Speaking of mug, Tim, I'm going to pay a little homage to your former studio where you
I
did
got started.
a rather batch of famous works in your days at.
Oh, look at Lou. Lou's doing the real thing, man.
Oh, sweet. He's got the. All right, hang on, Lou. Let me spotlight you for a quick second and give us the shot. There it is. What's the other side say? Give us the full effect. Yes. All right.
What I appreciate that is that, and all the things that Lou had to bring into the trailer, that mug made the cut. That's what I appreciate about that.
All right, well, let's get into it, Tim, because you know how quick this half hour goes by. I'm going to
for sure.
the music, so bear with me here. All right, welcome everyone. Today is Thursday, January the 20th. This is our time to pause and do the weekly briefing, which is a moment in time where Tim and I love to bring you up to speed with what's going on in the industry, latest trends, hot button issues that owners are talking about in the community, perhaps. And Tim, I guess I'll just set it up by saying this. This concept is something that came out of a lot of conversations with a lot of owners, studios, production companies, even some agencies. We're all busily setting goals and starting to try and make progress on those goals because it's that time of year. And that means sales, because sales is always a big goal. And that creates a lot of anxiety because if you did 2 million, 4 million, whatever last year, you immediately start thinking, oh, I got to start over, right? It's like starting over. And we went through the sales bingo card last week to help people start to visualize and chunk it down so that goal is not quite so stressful. But in preparing for next week's industry metrics report, which everyone here, make sure that you register for that. We'll share a link here in a minute. That we stumbled across another interesting piece of data, stepping back and looking at all of our clients and looking at a lot of aggregated data. We said, that's really interesting. So if I'm anxious, nervous, freaking out about, oh, I got to go create all these sales again for this year, what would you say to me?
Yeah. And that's some of where I think when we look at big data, often when we're in our own company bubble, we don't realize that what we have is very common. And so we look at other people and we chase what other people are doing instead of recognizing like the gift or the gold that you already own. So some of what we do is reconcile that. And when we make our reports, annual reports with our clients, we have a lot of feedback and different metrics that we look at using this kind of data. I'll show you an example of the kind of stuff that we're collecting. So looking at all of our kind of industry metrics that we can look at in a data set across hundreds of companies, we're able to pull a lot of different reports and create different graphs to get a sense of like where the trends are going, what's really happening. Are the profit margins being affected as much as every individual person believes? Which next week, it's a total teaser. Next week, you're going to be very surprised at profit margins. But also there's some gift when we're thinking about strategy positions, how producers should behave, how our sales team should behave, what owners should be thinking about building their beginning of the year factors. So we look at this stuff one-on-one with our clients, but we also like to share it here because there are some big picture items to give you all some comfort of that you're doing all right. Things are changing. How do we take advantage of it sooner than later? And what kind of strategy can you implement in the next 12 months?
So what was remember there was this one metric that we were going to show from an actual report, and this has been anonymized, obviously. Let me share my screen. So Tim, tell me about what this is and then how it led to this insight we're going to share today.
Yeah, so this is one of the examples of a page that we produce for our clients. And this is simply telling that client, hey, year over year comparison, how many clients did you have? So in 2020, they had 11 clients. In 2021, they had 13 clients. Their average client last year was 310,000. The average client this year is 220,000. So big difference. They added 2 clients and the average per client went down. And this last one, which is what we're going to talk about today, is the top 5 clients. What percentage of revenue did they generate for them? And I always find this interesting because a lot of us are always chasing the next lead, thinking more leads, more clients are always better. But in this case, if you look at it, in 2021, they had 13 clients. 5 of those clients generated 90% of the revenue. And in other words, they worked harder for the last 11% than they did for the first 89%. And that's such a, like, you could fire 8 clients and generate almost the same revenue, which probably would drop cost. So there's this real interesting profit opportunity that you get into, but there are pitfalls, and that's what we're going to discuss today. Like, what's the one side and the other, and then how that really feels to a business owner when you're so desperate to get a lead and so desperate to win every little project. Does it really add up? Is the question we're going to ask.
Yeah. So this is the. Can I skip ahead to the next screen, Tim, or am I giving?
Yeah.
Okay. So we said, well, let's look at this and see if there's a pattern when we look at representative studios. Okay, production companies, agencies. And this is what we saw. So from all this data, we said, okay, let's look at these 10 representative companies and then ask the question, where are they on this idea of 5 clients makes up 80%? And Tim, you can sort of explain what are we seeing here?
Yeah, we took representative data across different industries, different segments to show what they might look like and give everyone a sense of where they might fit. And there are some variables that when you get into the strategy, you have to take into account, but we just want to have a general principle of where you should fall and why you should fall that way. So Studio A really is our model studio. This is a client that the top 5 clients, the top 5 clients generated 80% of the revenue. So we call this the 5 makes 80 principle, or in this case, this is the 5 make 80 metrics is what we're looking at here. So what we're thinking is that at basically 5 clients generates 80% of the revenue from most companies that we're working with, gives you a really good sweet spot of the pitfalls that can come as well as the benefits that are there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, so if I look at maybe the extremes of this, I'm looking at production company B, right? Like, wait, that's really interesting. What does that mean? And then of course, J, I see like J is pegging the meter here. Like 100% of their money came from 5. So is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Right? Like, how would you read these tea leaves?
Yeah. So production company B is a great example of a company that does a lot of work for different clients. So they're spending a lot of their effort and energy getting multiple clients, lots of clients. And you think about the work it takes to onboard a client, keep up communication with them, manage all of the process with them. You know, every different phone call you have to make, instead of in the 5 minutes makes 80, 5 makes 80 principle. The thought is you only have to talk to 5 clients in a year. You would do multiple projects for them, but only 5 clients to get those projects done. Production company B is talking to 15, 20 clients to generate that kind of revenue. The far right, Studio J, is the other side of the pitfall, right? So 100% of their revenue is taken up with 5 clients, which that sounds like a daydream, we know it. But the reality is, if I peel this onion down further, I might actually discover that 2 of those clients generate 80% of their revenue, which really means I have gorilla clients. And if one of those clients were to back away or lose one of them, my company takes a major hit with one connection. So I'm trying to find a balance between not having the gorilla client that's going to destroy everything or having to do work so hard to generate the same revenue. I'll pull out another anomaly, but what?
Well, I was just, you were triggering a little bit of PTSD there, because I'm thinking for many years when I was running Impossible Pictures, I was probably Studio J, because there was a whole chapter of the business where we did a ton of work for Dish Network, right? And it was like upwards of $2 million a year. And then one year, one of my producers sent a poorly worded email and we were fired, and $2 million went poof. And that was almost impossible to recover from. Yeah. And I remember it happened again, years later when Discovery went through a big executive shakeup, and the new CMO came in and said, nope, we're not working with any of our current vendors and agencies. You guys are all fired. Have a nice life. And that was about $1.5 million. They walked out the door. Now, that's, of course, those are sad stories. Am I telling you don't have a big client like that? No, it's saying be prepared. be aware, right, Tim?
Yeah, what's interesting is imagine, because I know some of your story, right?
Yeah.
You were putting effort into all the clients you didn't have as part of that. So if we had this principle in place, possibly you would have said, you would have one, taken care of the clients you did have, could have followed through more and got a better sense of the tea leaves. Are they coming? Are they going? And you have more attention given to the people that give you the money. So there's a sensitivity that's gained by not basically saying, well, they're in the bag. Let's go find 20 more clients like that. And you're missing the one that you have in the bush, right? Or the one in the bag. So that's definitely part of what you're up against. But look at agency I, for example. They're nearly at the same number as J, but I know this segment very well. And in the agency space, it is very common to have a few clients. It's very common, but there are many deliverables in those clients. So you're talking about a large direct to brand relationship, and you might be working with a couple of departments within that, but you're working with one clear CMO, and you're looking at a long-term project, 1 or 2 year project. So those companies are generating $10 to $15 million a year, but they're doing it all with a few clients, 4 clients, 5 clients, 8 clients, and they can generate a lot of revenue within those silos. So it's a different business model and different strategy for business. But the thought process is there are gorillas, but not everyone who has those numbers adds up that way.
Right, right. Now, I'm wondering this, Tim. Think of the common situation. I'm going to unshare my screen here for a second. So let's think about the other end of the spectrum, not the gorilla client, but the ankle biter, let's call it, right? Or the tire kicker. Meaning there's a lot of clients that will come to you, the owner, and say, hey, we've got this project for you. It's $5,000. Do you want to do it? And what you hear is, we should take the money because, hey, maybe this could turn into $100,000 a year client, and that's what we want. So, but we got to prove it, earn it, et cetera. Well, what happens if if that happens to you on a regular basis?
Oh God, I'm telling you, that's the worst strategy you can implement as a business owner. Because the thought process is this: you're saying, I'm currently not qualified to do your big projects. So please just pick me, and then I'll prove it to you on these small little pieces that I'm worth it. And then someday, I hope you'll love me. You'll vote me as prom king and queen, and we'll be able to do your big job.
Right.
Where we're saying to you, you are already qualified. If they're talking to you, you're already there. And there has to be a standard that you work up against when you're qualifying your client. Now, what I'm not saying is say no to clients like that. What I'm saying is when someone says, I have a $5,000 deliverable, you say, I understand you have $5,000 deliverables. If you gave me $200,000 worth of projects this year, I can easily deliver the $5,000 projects with the 50 and hundreds. So
Right.
what's the big package? Let me talk to you as if you are an account. Let me think through all the possible work I can do with you. And I want to know that up front. I don't want to earn my way taking the small pieces. As you say, it's ankle biter. They're just basically looking for a fix in the moment, and there's no promise or guarantee. I know for certain there's no guarantee of future revenue. I've seen it happen over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about that conversation you can have early in the stages of that relationship, where you enter in and you set, you anchor, basically. You set the expectation right from the start of, we're this type of creative firm. We solve these size problems for clients of your type, and we do $100,000 things. So when they immediately ask for the $5,000 favor, they're already sort of on their heels a little bit, knowing that you're going to be saying, well, hold on a minute. Let's have a conversation and talk about a larger relationship within which that context, perhaps a $5,000 job makes sense. But the short answer is no, we don't just take $5,000 jobs to try and prove anything.
Yeah, you've heard us say this a million times, but it really is the key. The positioning of who you are as a company, we say that a lot, but also think about position yourself of who you are in that relationship with the client. You want to follow through, you want to make promises and follow through, and you want to have a sense of who you are and what you mean to that client when you begin an engagement, and you stay in that position. You don't have to be an order taker some days and then wish someday they're going to listen to you. You need to already be the expert in that relationship, and they're engaging your expertise from the beginning. And then
Yeah.
you keep on that. You give them the advice. You let them understand it. No, I'm going to talk about Eric's um, message here too, because this is really interesting.
Oh, sure.
He says, man, I couldn't sleep at night if all of that revenue was only from a few clients. And I totally understand that. It feels very stressful. But here's the flip I want people to learn. If your security is in the hands of your client, you should not sleep at night anyway. You're not in control of your own destiny. What we're trying to teach you is the security is in your hands. You are the one that understands that client. You're engaging them. You're in front of them. So a few clients you can easily manage and make all that revenue because you're in charge of that engagement. If you let clients run the engagement, there's never enough clients. Yeah. Because you never have security. You can't control them. They can just, one bad email, they can get pissy and walk away. And then there is a fear factor. So we want people to get to the other side of that equation and actually understand what it means to qualify a client, engage them in services, follow through on production, think big picture instead of small picture. Don't take orders, but give them strategy, give them deliverables, help them follow through. And all of that builds your security. Now the security is in your hands, not somebody that you're working with temporarily.
Well, Tim, I was having this other thought as I'm looking at this, and I was thinking, okay, for anyone here that knows me, I'm a big fan of new business development. Like, yes, let's go get that big fish, right? So the lesson, I think, I don't want people to walk away thinking, oh, I'm just supposed to concentrate on my five biggest clients and not develop new business. What I would say, though, is something you said earlier, when you said something like, what? These people could have said no to 11% of their business, all of their business last year, still generated about 90% of the same, 90% of the revenue. But think of the energy, the bandwidth, the brain space that you would get from not messing with those 8 other clients. If you put all that energy into, I'm going to go get 1 more, 2 more really great clients and give myself time, qualify them, really make sure that this is a great fit. This is going to be a killer relationship. This could be one of my 5 for next year. That's an interesting thought, because everything slows down, right? I now have maybe a year. Maybe I even reduce my company and say, reduce my company by 10%. Just reduce my cost by 10%.
Yeah.
Put all that energy into, we have that choice, right?
Absolutely that choice. You can see where this go hand in hand with the conversation we had last week about the bingo cards, where you can actually now start understanding how those targets of different clients and the probability of winning them, and only needing to have the focus of, I only need to win 1 a year. So I have 12 months to find that larger engagement, instead of trying to stack up a whole bunch of really small engagements to get to the same dollar point. It takes you a lot of $5,000 projects to get to 200,000. It only takes one $200,000 project to get there. So how do we get those targets, the real work on our business to position it out there? But Joel, let me show one more thing. The reason why we built these segments this way, so people can see. This is a total another eye opener in this whole idea here. Oh, are you going to share your screen more, Ty? So I can.
I'm going to share mine.
Yeah.
Which am I going to share the keynote?
Yeah. So agencies, a C, D, E, and F compared to G, H, I, and J. There's a big turning point here that I want people to recognize as well. Those 4, C, D, E, and F, are all companies, or all kind of segments companies of people that work $3 million and less. And the G through J are above 3 million. So here's what's really interesting for me. I feel like when you want to grow your company, you believe the objective is to get more and more and more and more. More clients, more projects, more employees. And how many conferences have you gone to, Joel, where people ask how many employees you have, as if that made you legitimate?
Oh yeah.
And I would wear a badge of honor and say, I'm at 10 million in revenue, I have 2 employees, right? Or like the example I always use is Warren Buffett, where Berkshire Hathaway has 12 people in it, and he's the wealthiest man on the planet. Like, that's a way better ratio than like how much money can I possibly spend? So in this segment of growing, we often believe more is better. But if you look at the successful companies, they've actually chosen specific is better to understand there's a certain market they work with, there's a specialties that they leverage, and they don't say yes to things that don't fit within their realm.
Mm.
Now it takes less effort and you earn more money. And that's the tipping point. You have to break out of that tipping point to get to the other side. I often feel like this is where the ingredients stack up, where we often have production and creative working together to get us to a $2 million business. But that sales person that shows up and that sales strategy allows us to start asking different questions. And I don't mean a sales rep that's keeping your $1.5 million company alive. I'm talking about a sales strategy, sales intention that really anyone, a rep or an inside person, could fulfill because you know the direction you're headed. So to me, that was another big thing of like, how do you get there? Well, you have to start focusing on a smaller group of people to get you to those larger levels. Your revenue increase, your confidence increases, and your profit increases.
You're reminding me, Tim, and I hadn't even thought of this until this very moment. I remember distinctly this period of time when I implemented a very simple hack that anyone here should also try, just called the minimum engagement. I just said, you know what? I think I'm going to set my minimum engagement at 10,000. No, maybe 15. Wait. And I really thought about it. And I said, no, our minimum engagement is $25,000. And it's amazing how many conversations just went in a completely different direction right from the start by just, okay, I know we're having this conversation and I know you have this need. Just to put it out there, we do have a minimum engagement of $25,000. So that's the size or expertise that we have that solves those types of problems. Should we keep this conversation going? Well, what happened is one of two things. If the person's not a fit, they're like, oh, sorry, I'm not a fit for your company. I didn't realize you guys were that expert or what have you. Or the person said, yeah, that's fine. And I'm like, great. Now I know what to invest. I'm now taking, instead of having a conversation that's a complete distraction, because I'm looking for that next $5,000 or $10,000 fix, I'm now having a conversation called, okay, this they responded very relaxed and very comfortable with that number. That's really interesting. Let's go.
This is Ryan Summers. Focusing on finding every way to grow current business led us to the biggest gigs at Digital Kitchen. Focusing on nonstop on home run swing silver bullet new clients is what closed Digital Kitchen. Totally it. Like that desire that there's always something better, there's always something more, and that more thing just creates fray, creates lack of focus. You can't keep up with the strategy. You're always hiring, you're always freelancing, and you're just basically giving away all your effort. You're probably even working 20-hour days instead of 10-hour days to make that happen.
I'm curious if, I don't know, Ryan, if you could put it into a sentence, what was like, is that hindsight that told you that, or was there just a lack of understanding at the time that, oh, we should just focus on our existing accounts, I'll call them?
It was an active rift between two different segments within the company. The old school segment of the company said, go and find more home run swings, like one or two of the biggest things we ever had. But the new section of the company was like, well, if we had Warner Brothers trust us with a $20,000 job and slip in all the different things we can do and try to bring them closer, they already trust us. That could lead to a $100,000 job. The $20,000 job in 6 months turned into a $2.5 million job. But they viewed that as like, great, you did that once. Now go to new people and do that again versus see how much more is there. And that literally was the question of, do your creative directors go out and create new business, or do they create even stronger relationships? And you can tell which side won and which side lost.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting you called it old school and new school, but like I often find it's part of maturity that people find a comfort zone of like, oh, I'm actually really, really comfortable here. I make all that I need to. I find a lot of security, and I understand the growth potential from where I am. Opposed to like immaturity feels that you don't know that, so you're always desperate for, well, maybe I don't know who I am yet. I'm going to go discover myself, and that part of it just is always a rat race.
Was it Joel who said that we're in this industry, we're addicted to the big reveal, or referenced that from someone?
Yeah, that was my podcast with Blair Enns about this whole like, oh my God, if I can just get in front of the right client, and rip the sheet off with my most amazing idea, they'll buy it.
Yeah, I think where the maturity is it. I think we're all still like addicted to like Christmas in reverse.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, there are decision points that we can make as business owners as we grow and understand our clients and their capabilities. It's interesting when you see it reflected here in numbers, and especially, we at RevThink have this opportunity to see not everyone's numbers, but we see a lot of numbers. And when we started doing this analysis of the comparison from company to company was one thing, but the company to the industry really gave us a perspective of a different type of strategy that we'd want people to try to go after, and a better confidence that it's achievable. We're kind of saying we're not guessing anymore. We see enough examples, and with enough people and enough data, subjective data from conversations and live data here from the Creo system, that we know with some certainty there's a lot happening. And next week we'll reveal more. I think, like I said, I think the profit numbers is a surprising one for next week. The revenue number is pretty interesting too, to look at the post-COVID space.
I'm going to just say thank you to Ryan as I gently give him the boot. Thank you for jumping.
Ryan.
Yeah. So Tim, what can folks expect next week? Right? Are we going to tell them how much money they should expect, or profit margins, or are labor costs actually going up, or are they not going up? I mean, all this.
All that. Those are great teasers. That's exactly it. The one I think that we're all dealing with is the employee costs or labor costs. Mm-hmm. I think there's people are going to be surprised when they see how the labor costs actually add up. Yeah.
I was like, no, that can't be right. That's not what the narrative is out there. Come on.
It's totally not, because we're having real conversations with real people, and those stick in our mind greater than all the other stuff that we have going on. But we also know, and we've seen companies pivot towards the conversation with their clients instead of pushing it all on their employees. So there's been some interesting gain in certain segments that way.
By the way, I'm also curious, maybe next week, could we, like if we showed our graph again, it would be really interesting to know which of these companies was profitable, which of these was not. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, it's going to be, so next week, let's set people up. It's going to be a little bit longer of a conversation. You have to register for it, because you have to be, don't tell all your friends, or you can tell your friends, but clearly there are things that we share that sometimes feel like they're sensitive to your employees, and we want to be sensitive to that. Our job is to serve the creative entrepreneur. So we want people to register so we understand who's in the audience, so everyone feels confident that we're not giving away things to that degree. Joel, are we changing the time next week? It's same time, just longer, right?
Oh, gosh, you're putting me on the spot. Let me check and see. I'm literally opening up my calendar.
We're going to watch Joel open his calendar right now and just double check. We will be sending out multiple emails this week and posting on social media too. So anything that's happening is.
Yeah, I think we're going to move it an hour later. So the good news is, if you show up at this time, you only have to sit around for an hour looking at
You can watch the other call Joel is having, so you can make a 1 hour weekly briefing call. So go back to the slide, go to RevThink.live/register, get your name in there, and then you'll be up to speed with the time, and you get the reminders. By the way, we got to make sure that invite is matching the same time too.
Good point. Yes.
That's a question. So, but please register, be part of that. We would love to share more of this information with you. We will only do that. We are not recording it. We're only doing it live. It won't be reposted so that it can't be shared. So this is the moment. Mark it on your calendar.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Tim. As you all know, this tribe is all about helping you thrive in business, life, and career. So we appreciate you being part of the community, and we will see you all next week, or until then, or before then, in the community. So thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Have a great week, guys.